Welcome to the Cycle Starters podcast, where we explore the transformative journeys of individuals breaking generational patterns and creating new legacies. I'm your host, Heather Rebecca Wilson, and today we're joined by Lisa Ebersole, a writer, filmmaker, and the founder of Rainbow Healing Studio. Lisa's journey is a fascinating blend of artistic creation and spiritual exploration. From her roots in Washington, D.C., to her time in New York, and now calling Venice Beach home, she's been on an incredible path of discovery and transformation. Her work spans from creating compelling films like 37 Problems to establishing a healing practice that embraces the belief that infinite possibility is our true nature. In this episode, we'll dive deep into Lisa's ancestral healing journey, explore her creative process, and learn how she's breaking cycles in her own lineage. From her early experiences with breathwork to her current role as a healer and storyteller, Lisa's story is one of continuous evolution and growth. But before we get into our conversation today with Lisa, I do have a favor to ask. If you're liking the content that we're creating on this channel, please like, subscribe, comment, and share. It really helps the algorithm get our episodes in front of more viewers. So thank you in advance for your support. So grab a drink, grab a snack, sit back and relax, and let's welcome Lisa. Hey, girl.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. Very happy to be here. This is my first podcast, as you know, but now you're podcast listeners now.
I'm so happy you said yes to doing this. And I love seeing your face. And I cannot wait to hear more of your story in terms of your ancestral healing story, and then also how you came to be the founder of Rainbow Healing Studio. So it's going to be juicy. I'm very excited. So, why don't we start with your ancestry? So, what can you share with us about your ancestral background?
I mean, the
Hmm.
story I always got was my last name, Ebersole. I was told it was Wild Boar's Salt Spring. That's
Mm,
not entirely true, but it's cool. I like this even better. Valley of the Wild Boar is what I got today
okay,
researching on
nice.
Ancestry. So it's Swiss German. I don't know much about what was going on in Swiss Germany with the Ebersols, but
Hmm.
when they came to the US, they settled in Amish country in Pennsylvania and then kind of spread out to Ohio and a couple other places in Ohio is where my dad was from. And my mom, her maiden name was Tau, and there's a fjord in Norway called Tau. So that one's a little more direct, but I don't know much about the Tau people and the Norwegian roots.
How do you spell that? How do you spell Tau?
The fjord is Tau. I guess when
Okay.
they came to the US, it got changed to Towe, so it would be easier to pronounce, but nobody ever pronounced that Tau. It was always toe and getting corrected.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Cool. All right. So you've got some Swiss German roots.
I do.
So is that both sides or
No,
just
that's
your
the
paternal side?
yeah, just paternal side. And then my mom, I don't know anything beyond Norway.
Norway. Got okay. So there could be some Viking in your
Yeah,
lineage. You'll have to do an ancestry
I
test
know.
or
I need
something.
to do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely relate to the water a lot. So the fact
Hmm.
that it's a fjord makes sense to me.
Very cool. Have you been to Norway, by the way?
I haven't. I really want to go. It's definitely one of the places on my short list.
Yeah, I hear it's absolutely gorgeous. All right. Okay, cool. Thank you for sharing that
Yeah.
background. So I'm curious, when did this concept of ancestral healing even enter your consciousness? And then next, I want to find out from you when you realized that you actually have the power to change the patterns, to change the cycles. Tell me a little bit about that.
I think the an idea of something being passed down through a lineage that was not healing, that definitely came into my awareness from 12-step programs. I've been in Al-Anon forever, and the idea that alcoholism is a generational disease, experience, whatever you want to call it, that I saw very clearly that that was true in my family. And, as I looked deeper into my own stuff through 12 step and other work, it's everything is generational. Fear of financial insecurity is generational. The way we approach the world is generational. So that's one of the things I'm always looking at now in my actions and present life is sort of like, whose story am I playing out in
Right.
addition to my own? And sometimes it's me as a kid, but often I'm like, oh, that's my mom. That's my dad. It's so clear when there's a story attached to something in the present that's way beyond my life experience.
All right. Well, so let's talk about Rainbow Healing Studio. Tell
Yeah.
me about your journey getting here because you've done a bunch of different things.
Yeah.
You're a writer, filmmaker, you've done some acting, correct?
Yes, I act in my series on Amazon, 37 Problems, and I will
Gosh,
act in one of the two films I'm writing right now. I don't act in everything, but whenever I can, I try to act.
I love it.
That's a funny and interesting story that relates. My parents are dead, and I moved a bunch of stuff from DC here a few years ago. And I was looking through things and I found my nursery school report card. Anyway,
Aw.
at age 4, apparently my favorite thing to do was to boss everybody around and make them sit as though they were in a movie theater watching a
Hmm.
movie and serve popcorn and direct the class in their imaginary movie watching experience. And I read this and it just blew my mind because as a filmmaker and an actor, I've always a little bit felt like a fraud because I didn't that story that you hear of like, oh, I was making home movies from the time I was 8 years old. Like, no, zero. Didn't act, no theater. And then I read this and I was like, oh my God, that was my inherent nature. And then, a bunch of crap got piled on top of it that wasn't nurtured or explored. And 17 years went by before I rediscovered it at NYU, sort of by accident.
I love it. So were you in the Gallatin School at NYU?
Yeah, I was in the Gallatin School, which I call Choose Your Own Adventure School, which fit me very well because there you can sort of make up whatever you want to do as a major. There are some requirements, but it's very self-directed. It was created, I think, after the Vietnam War for actually veterans who were coming back and had lives and families and other things, but wanted to get a degree. So it was very flexible. And because of that flexibility, I was able to take a beginning film class at Tisch that I wouldn't have been able to take if I had been somewhere else. And that exposed me to film for the first time. I'd been a photographer up until then and a good writer. It was like, I'm a photographer and I'm a good writer. But I thought photography was going to be the thing. And then that class brought it all together.
Gosh, I'm gonna have to watch your series on Amazon. I
Yes.
am dying to see this. Okay, all right. Well, so you were studying film at NYU. Tell me more about how this evolved into the work you're doing now with Rainbow Healing Studio.
Well, living in New York, I was constantly stimulated by the city and I would leave my house in the morning and not come back for 16 hours. Like that was a normal day.
Hmm.
I have a dog now. I could never have had a dog in New York City. And that was not my life. I was a storyteller on screen and then got into theater. But it was always this kind of bifurcated existence where I worked at a tech startup. That was my day job. And then I did off Broadway theater on the nights and weekends. And in some ways, that was wonderful because I had money from the tech job to pay for the off Broadway theater. But I didn't fully have to look for anything deeper than the kind of New York City stimulation, go, 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 take action, reap rewards or not. I didn't have to look deeper than that until I stopped the tech job and came to LA and immediately was like, I can be alone for days and in LA. You really have to make an effort to connect. And also that noise was gone. That New York City static radio playing
Mhm.
24/7 was just not here. And I think the first 4 years I was here, I make an excuse to go back, like, oh, I need to see this. I need to do this. Probably every 6 weeks because I felt untethered without
Mhm.
that amount of stimulation, that kind of adrenaline that I was used to. But the more I leaned in, now I'm like full woo woo off the spectrum. But the more I lean into LA, the more I crave that space. And you know, I love being outdoors. I spend more than half of my time outdoors, which is amazing. And yeah, I didn't really answer your question, but that
It's
was
okay.
that was my New York to LA shift.
This is all part of your story. It's
Yeah.
fascinating.
Well, the healing you asked when we spoke before, which was helpful, when did the healing idea come in? And I
Mhm.
really, I think 2 years into being here, it was my second year here. I was in a relationship and he was kind of everything. And then that exploded one night fabulously. And I was completely alone in this city where I knew a few people, but like he was kind of my sun and moon and
Mhm.
stars, which I do not recommend if anyone's wondering. But that night, I had a friend in grad school. I was getting my screenwriting MFA from UCLA, and he had been through a similar experience in his marriage. And he just said, you need to come to breath work with me tomorrow morning. I'm going to pick you up at 6:30 in the morning. And I was like, that is not something. I don't get up that early. Now I do. I did, all of the things, but I was just desperate and I felt so terrible and so alone that it's like, oh, this dude is going to come and pick me up at 6:30 in the morning. Fine. Yes, I'll go. And then he was like, you can't drink coffee. This is sounding again like something I don't want to do. But I did it. I did it. I did not drink coffee. I got in his Volvo at 6:30 in the morning. We went to breath work and that became a really important, I would say my first important healing modality that was not Western medicine or therapy was daily breath work for a year and a half. I was really committed because I couldn't function without it in the way I
Mhm.
wanted to. So before I went to write, before I went to school, before I did whatever I was doing, I would do at least an hour of breath.
Well, so when did the Rainbow Healing Studio idea come about? When did this drop into your field?
Well, I'll preface it by saying, so that breath work piece was the beginning of, we're in LA. There's a lot of stuff of similar stuff that you can do every week. Sound baths, and then, all these different kind of spiritual cacao ceremonies in Topanga. I said, I can't even remember what it was. I sent my best friend a text once that was like, I can't come over. I'm going to a female cacao ceremony, goddess ceremony in Topanga, so we can send one of our girls off to Las Vegas because this woman was moving. And she just wrote back, "Who are you, witch? You're a full witch." And I started laughing. I know witchier people, but I'm like a partial witch. So yeah, the breath work kind of unlocked all these other, like, why not? Why not do
Mhm.
that? And then I was in Sedona doing a power animal journey, as one does. And so went in Sedona,
Nice.
do whatever
Yeah.
they are offering. And I hate it when it's supposed to be 2 hours and I get there and it's like, oh no, it's actually going to be 3 hours. All my like, oh no, 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 no. All my resistance is up. But I was with my best friend who was probably like even more not into the idea. So I kind of became the like, yeah, we're going to do this. Why not? Anyway, in the middle of the thing, the shaman looks at me and breaks whatever she was doing and just goes, you're a shaman, right? And I was like, who's she talking? And I'm the only one with my eyes open, which I wasn't supposed to have open, but somehow they had opened. And it was noted. I definitely heard her. And then just through the work I was doing in like step and with inner child healing and with all these different spiritual experiences that I've been part of in LA and in nature. It's funny because the beach, I was thinking about this before we got on, the beach was always the place where I felt the most joy. I lived for the 2 weeks of the year that my family would go to Bethany Beach, Delaware.
Mm-hmm.
And the
Yep.
rest of the year was basically like, get through it until Bethany Beach. And occasionally we would do like a weekend in May, and those were the best summers. And then, I moved to the beach, and it was like this thing that I gave myself, I cried, that I'd always wanted, but it felt so far away. And then suddenly I was like, I'm here. It's just this whole kind of longing and scarcity and reward thing around the beach.
Yeah.
Like I don't have to play that tape anymore because now I live at the beach. So things like that, I became aware of sort of the stories that I had had that kept me, kind of stuck and small. And the desert was another one. The ocean and the desert are really important to me. And, I go to Joshua Tree and Yucca Valley
Huh?
a lot. But before even that, when I was 19 years old, I had a pretty intense eating disorder. And I
Mm.
read about this wilderness survival trek in the
Mm-hmm.
Utah desert that was 28 days. And you lived like a hunter gatherer tribe. You had no food or water. It was only what you found. I mean, they gave you some supplemental things, but basically the warning was you will lose 15 to 20 pounds over the course of this desert
Wow.
walkabout was what they called it. I
Mm-hmm.
saw you will lose 15 to 20 pounds in 28 days and was like, sign me up. And then the night before I was going, I hadn't thought about it at all and started to actually like, wait a minute, what am I doing? I'm going to the Utah desert. And by the way, we had like signed my life away because they don't guarantee you can be saved if you like fall in a crevasse.
Mm.
There's parts where the helicopter can't get to. People
Right.
can't get you out. If you had a heart attack and fell in a crevasse, you're going to die. So it was like this crazy, like, what did I sign up for? Where am I going? And again, I don't know anybody, but that experience that I went into from a very unhealthy place. Now, when I look back, that was God, that was the universe, that was whatever we believe directs our lives, showing me there's another version of you. And because once I did that, I didn't want to go back. Living 28 days without phones, without computers, no mirrors. It's surreal. I didn't know what I looked like for 28 days. I didn't take showers. We had some Dr. Bronner soap and there's creaks here and there, but
Mm-hmm.
it's sort of like all the modern things that are part of my reality were just gone. And I ended up surrendering to that after a few days of hating it and resisting, and I absolutely loved it. And it was really hard to go back to New York. So that was something I look back on now as like the desert is a very grounding place for me and a place of infinite possibility, as is the ocean. And it got to me, when I was 19 and then 20 years before I rediscovered it.
I love the desert. I love the
Yeah.
ocean. And I too have a soft spot for Bethany Beach. That's where my parents took our family when we were really little. Our first family vacations were to Bethany. So lots of, really beautiful memories in that area. So yeah, we're both from the
Yeah.
DMV. You
The
grew up
DMV.
in DC. I was born in DC, but primarily grew up in Northern Virginia and then lived in DC as an adult, but my grandparents lived there. Yeah, I mean, you had the DC life. You lived in the city, and then you were living in an even bigger city in New York. And then it sounds like you had these spiritual experiences. in these other landscapes, right? By the ocean, even as a child, and
Yeah.
then moving out here to the West Coast. All right. Well, so I mean, tell me about the rainbow
Oh, yeah.
healing. What
Sorry.
is it? Tell
Okay.
me how this came to you.
How it came to me. So for the past, I guess, couple of years, I have been doing parts work with a guide of my own and also doing the 12-step work and then just continuing to explore different like law of attraction, just a bunch of different modalities. I feel like
Hmm.
I've kind of immersed myself in them and in putting them into practice in my life. And one of the really big things I did about 6 months ago was move to a house. And like you said, I grew up in downtown in DC. Not only was I downtown in DC, I was in an apartment and it was a large apartment, but there was no yard. It was not easy to get outdoors. Definitely couldn't sneak out because you're going past people in the elevator, the doorman. There's cameras everywhere. It's not a sneak out of the house existence in any way. But I moved to this house, and a friend had given me a rainbow maker, which is like a crystal that you hang in the windows, and it makes rainbows when it's sunny. But in my old place, I will say I didn't try very hard to make it happen, but it didn't easily fit in front of a window. So I just hung it above my desk, and it was like my crystal totem above the desk.
Hmm.
And when I moved in here, I have 160-degree windows. And I was like, oh, I can hang the rainbow maker. And I put it up, and I had rainbows all over my wall from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. suddenly that day. And it made me so happy. So I bought three more, but I was so happy. And I had that, other realization of I've had the rainbow maker for 5 years. I just didn't ever put it in sunlight. So I've
Mm,
had this experience, the joy I feel when I see all the rainbows has been available to me, but I literally didn't do the thing you need to do to see it.
yeah.
So that happened. And then I have twin nieces who are 5.5. And my brother asked them what they wanted to be when they grew up. And one of them said she wanted to be a rainbow. And all the adults
Sweet.
started crying, of course. And she believes she can be a rainbow. And who's to say she won't be? When she's done here,
Right.
maybe she turns into a rainbow. It was like physical in my face reminder of, oh, yeah, there was a time when you didn't have a thought and think, oh, I can't do that. It's too late for that. There it was just, I like rainbows. I want to be one. The rainbows on the wall, the niece wanting to be a rainbow. When I started offering to work with people, the feeling of the rainbows was what I want to give people. I want to give them the inherent joy and possibility and limitlessness that rainbows and my niece thinking she can be a rainbow, wanting to be a rainbow, and then knowing at age 4, I knew I wanted to direct films, apparently. Like it was all there and I loved it. So, I mean, of course, there's happy moments in childhood, but with the rainbow healing, we do start with parts work, which usually is a stuck part of us that is not a positive experience. It was
Yeah.
some kind of trauma, negative. I have had one person who had a baby thing, and I've had one person who had a 14-year-old thing. So I'm going to say it's usually something between baby and 14 that
Hmm.
happened. And whatever feelings the person had were, instead of being expressed, they were stuffed out of their own fear and knowledge that it wasn't acceptable. Someone else told them, like, you got to suck it up, whatever it was. And so that stuck energy then becomes like tar
Yeah.
that literally blocks new ideas and blocks even what was beneath it, which might have been a really joyful thing. Look, feeling stuck energy and allowing it out, that's Michael Singer. That's parts work. That's 12 step. That's not new. It's not super comfortable. And it definitely helps to have a guide to lead you through it, at least the first few times. But beyond that, I think the piece that I found so exciting is that then there was a rainbow because once I'm able to get to a stuck part with someone, and we all have bazillions of them. But once we're able to get there and release, the trauma, at least through breathing and feeling and just allowing it, not trying to change it or get rid of it, just allowing it to be, then we can actually talk to that version of you and ask it questions. And one client that blew my mind, she came to me with like a present day, midlife, totally changing careers. This old career doesn't work for me anymore. I don't want to live like that, but I have no idea what I'm going to do next. And she had made a list, and we were going to do the rainbow healing because she also had some body stuff. But we did the rainbow healing for the body stuff. And when we were talking to that young part of her, and this is not hypnosis. I mean, she and I, we're saying like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, like ask, little you or 12-year-old you or 3-year-old you. When we were talking to that part, I said, well, why don't you ask her what she likes to do? And she started listing things, play soccer, go be outside, all these things. And then, when we kind of came back to present day reality, spiritual business coaching discussion, which is kind of what I do with a lot of people also, they're generally linked. Suddenly the list was completely different because maybe it's too late to be a professional soccer player, but what's exploding in Los Angeles and all around the world right now, women's soccer. So it was like, if you want to be in that world, because she was also a huge fan, she's European. So as like, if that's your happy place, that world, you can absolutely work in women's soccer in a million different ways. So that idea had not even occurred to her. And that's kind of the magic of it, is that this whole rainbow healing thing, no thought beyond the shaman telling me I was a shaman to ever
Mm-hmm.
do this as an offering or a business. It just kind of kept coming to me in pieces until finally like, all right, I think I'm gonna have a workshop and see if anyone shows up. 7 people signed up immediately. And we did it in the house with the rainbows, and they all got rainbow makers and little hearts of gold at the end. But yeah, it's definitely a spiritual journey because I didn't come up with the idea.
Yeah, no, this came to you. This
Oh
found
yeah,
you. It definitely feels like that. That's amazing. Okay, cool. So now I have a better understanding of,
yeah.
what this is all about. This is so cool. Well,
Well,
so
can I say one
thank
more thing?
yeah, please, please.
So it's been interesting the way it has evolved because definitely divine inspiration, whatever you want to call it, universe inspiration brought it to me. And because of that, I'm being very careful with
Yeah.
next moves because it would be so easy to start a thing and charge a membership, and maybe I will, maybe I'll do all of that, but I'm really allowing the space for this to become, what it's meant to be. And I do it all day long and practically every phone call I have with people in different ways because I'm also an entrepreneur and
Hmm.
I love me some business exploration actions. We talk about this stuff all the time. I
Yeah,
love it. I do really enjoy that. But it's a very different energy. So there's
totally.
that part of me that's like, let's go. Like, let's get this started. Let's start a podcast. Let's do this. Like, boom, boom, boom. And I'm like, just hang on over there. Like, things are still being revealed over here that I need a little more of before I go over there completely. So I'm in the middle.
This is so cool. I love it. And I'm hoping, and I think we've talked about this, I'm hoping that you will do a rainbow healing session for the Ancestral Healing Collective, which is my monthly membership in 2026. I think that would
Yes,
be so cool. So
I would love to do
stay
that.
tuned for that. All right. Well, so let's go back to ancestral healing for a second. So I want to hear from you. What do you feel like the cycles are that you're breaking in this lifetime?
So the cycles I'm breaking in this lifetime, I mean, one of them definitely has to be alcoholism and the response to it. I don't drink personally, but I think more than that, because of all the work I've done and I continue to do on myself, I'm not reactive. in, well, I'm still knee jerk reactive, but I do the work to calm the reaction before I
Hmm.
take any action. And, I grew up in a house where it was very much like, rah, 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 like ping pong. And we had a lot of fun. Like, it's never all one thing. There was a lot of chaos and explosions and a lot of fun and trips to the beach and playing tennis. But that kind of alcoholism and response to it, I feel like that I'm breaking that chain. Whether it'll stay broken, who knows? But it's something that when I became aware of it in my family, then, when I talked to my mom about her family, and when I talked to my dad about his, without calling anybody an alcoholic who didn't self-identify that way, like it was a part of things. So that's one piece. And then I would say equally big for me personally, and that I saw in my family, was the feast or famine when it came to money. That, like, either we are okay or we have nothing. And either way, fear, always fear that it was not going to be okay. And my dad was born during the Great Depression. So it made a lot of sense, that he would have that in him, that scarcity, or the fear of falling back there. But my mom had it as well. And I think both of my parents, if left to their own devices with every opportunity and support that I've had, I'm pretty sure that my mom would have been a painter and my dad would have been a writer, and maybe more than a writer, who knows. But definitely writer and painter were their sort of left behind dreams because they had to make money. And those are things you don't do when you have to make money. Those things are privilege. So a part of, my healing that in the ancestry is finding a path where I'm able to do those things and support myself and others. So it's not, such a yin yang where there is like the middle path. And I'm still actively working on that all the time, but I'm very aware that they had dreams they did not allow themselves to pursue because of money, and that they've given me the privilege not to have to make that choice. I will say that it's still extremely hard to choose the artist path, even if you've always had all the support in the world, because there's not a guarantee with anything, but that path has the least guarantee of any that I ever heard of growing up. And the entrepreneurial path, it turns out, is very similar in that there's
Yeah.
no guarantee, but there's a big payoff in the entrepreneurial success. Whereas in the artist success, you're still a starving artist. On the entrepreneur path, you're building a company, and if it's successful, it grows and you grow as a result. Artist, you sell a thing, you get some money, and then you got to do it again, selling little companies over and over and over, but
Hmm.
not building one. I mean, a few exceptions, like Shonda Rhimes has definitely built a machine, and Murphy has built a machine. But I would say most of the people I know, myself included, we're building little companies and getting compensated over and over again, piece by piece, in success. That's the successful version. And I'm grateful. I am experiencing the successful version.
Awesome. I love how creative you are and how seriously you take your creativity and your artistry, and keep going with everything that you're doing. Because I do feel both you and I are on this path. We're actually giving permission to other people to do this. So we just got to keep blazing forward with all of this. All right. Well, thank you for sharing all of that. And related to this, I want to talk some astrology. So I mentioned earlier
Yeah,
that I
I'm
have a
excited.
monthly membership called the Ancestral Healing Collective. So it is a sacred space that I've created for female-bodied cycle breakers and cycle starters to alchemize deep ancestral wounds into creative potential, shifts to higher consciousness, embodied joy, and even spiritual gifts with astrology and pleasure as transformative medicine. So every month we have a new moon pleasure practice and dance party. And recently, I've been adding sound healing to those
Good.
events.
Yeah.
And I also have a guest teacher lead a workshop or some sort of experience. So, Lisa, you're going to do this for me in
Sure.
2026. It's going to be
Can't wait.
amazing. So that's what's included in the membership. It's $55 a month. And then everybody in the membership gets 20% off all of my offerings. And they get access to our really awesome library, our resource library of past workshops that you can watch
Cool.
over and over again. So, astrology for me, it's not the rule, but it is a really, really important tool. And it's definitely something that I engaged with along my own ancestral healing journey. And the way I relate to it is that it's a framework and a language for understanding yourself as an energetic being, but also empowering yourself as that energetic being on an ancestral healing journey. And the pleasure piece comes in because when you are healing trauma, in order to, sustain yourself, you really have to pour back into yourself. You have to balance the trauma healing with pleasure. So, pleasure for me is the fuel that sustains you along your journey, but it's also your power. And our sexual energy and our creative energy are one in the same. So, if you're not like connected to your pelvic landscape, your body, your sexuality, you're actually going to hit some blocks in your creative life. So that's why that's all woven
Mm,
together.
yeah.
So do you mind sharing your sun, moon, and rising sign with our community?
No, I would love to. And we have clarity on that because
Yes.
I investigated, I found my baby book in storage. And my mom always had this story about how I was born at like 6 o'clock in the morning and she would wake up every year. And then at some point, I don't know how I became aware that it was not so early and crazy. It was kind of a normal time, but I'd never found my birth certificate. So I found my baby book and the birth certificate, and I was born at 10:13 a.m., which means I'm a Cancer sun. I'm July 18th coming up.
Yeah. Happy early birthday.
Yeah, the moon is Aries,
Hmm.
apparently. I don't know if
Hmm.
you can tell me what that's based on, but I was born in DC, July 18th. And then at 10:13 a.m., which makes my rising sign Virgo. I had thought it was Leo. So that's all I know is the time of birth affected my rising sign when I redid the, cafe astrology calculation.
Thank you for doing that
Mhm.
because now we can really dive into your life mission, your divine purpose. That's what the rising sign is. It's the vehicle for your divine mission. It's the lens that you see everything out of. So it's your perception of reality. So I can relate to this a little bit because I am a Virgo moon. So Virgo is mutable earth. And earth is what we use to build the structures that give us stability and security in our lives. And when we have an element that is mutable, it just means that it's changeable, it's adaptable, and it's flexible. So I would say that Virgo is the most intellectual of all of the earth signs. And the archetypal energy that I associate with Virgo is the discerning herbalist. Like Virgo is the energy of the healer. And look at what you're doing. I mean, it's amazing. You're really embodying this. And so the other archetypes that are associated with Virgo are the virgin. But it's not the woman that abstains from sex. It is
Mm,
the woman who is complete unto herself. So it's like
mm,
the sovereign woman. So when she is seeking wisdom, she's not externalizing that, she's seeking within. So I love that. And I really get that energy from you. And then, of course, every sign has a high expression and a low expression. So the high expression of Virgo, right, is that healer, that person that wants to make things better. It's the
mhm,
energy of refinement.
mhm,
And Virgo's very practical, like all the earth signs, but organized, precise, meticulous. And then, of course, the lower expression is being overly perfectionistic
yeah.
and being really hard on yourself. And so I'm a Virgo moon, so I really had to work on stopping negative self-talk a long time ago. I didn't even realize I was doing it. So yeah, that's what people pick up on when they first meet you is
Mm,
your rising sign energies. And sometimes that's actually in the shadow because everybody knows their sun sign. So your sun sign is where the sun was the day that you were born, and this
okay.
is where you shine This is your creative energy. It's the special sauce that you mix into everything that you do. And Cancer is a different energy than Virgo. It's
Yeah.
cardinal water. And water is our emotions, our feelings, our sentiments. And cardinal means it's the initiating thrust of that element. So this is initiating emotion, initiating water. So it's powerful. It's like a tidal wave of emotion. So all of the water signs are extremely psychic and intuitive. So you're a healer now. I feel like the Virgo and the Cancer is working really well together because you're very sensitive and Cancer is ruled by the moon. So you have a lot of motherly energy, nurturing energy, very loving. I mean, it's just so much love and you feel everything. The negative expression of Cancer would be, if you think of like the crab with the crab
Yeah.
claw,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
will clamp down on something and never let it go. So you can be prone to holding grudges against people. You cannot let go of shit. But the high expression is the secret entrepreneur. This is the person that loves family. They love hosting family gatherings. Family heirlooms are very important to them. And I often think of Cancer as the emotional archivist of the family.
Yeah.
So tell me, we talked a little about Virgo and a little bit about Cancer. Does this resonate for you? Please throw anything back at me that doesn't resonate.
Oh, and no, it totally, all of it resonates. I think it's interesting, like that the Virgo is the piece that people see. I think it's shifting, but I would say up until the last 2 years, because of the fluid artist instability, creative part of me, the other side was very like, let's get to the point. Let's fix this. Let's do it. The like problem solver, which is
Hmm.
great to have. But I was definitely falling into that perfectionism. Nothing is ever good enough. Workaholism, all of those things that come along with that kind of taskmaster energy, which is needed, in sprinkles, not the full glass. So the mutable earth, I love that idea. And the virgin sovereign woman. I mean, at this point, anything that disturbs me in the present, I told you before we got on, my neighbor's dog was barking. We're about to do a podcast. And I'm so trained now that like it has nothing to do with the dog. Like, okay, why am I angry? I'm angry because this is going to ruin my appearance on Heather's podcast. Why does that matter? Because I want it to go well. Why does that matter? Because I'm talking about a new thing for the first time. Why does that matter? All the way down to like, I'm a failure, I'm worthless. And that's the neighbor's dog barking, which, by the way, of course, because God has a sense of humor, it has completely stopped since we've
Yeah,
been talking. I haven't heard a single thing.
neither have I. All right. Well, so,
Oh, and then the
oh, yeah,
sun.
go ahead.
I mean, I always related to cancer, family, water, all of that. But I love the kind of secret entrepreneur and the emotional archivist idea. Those I'm finished writing down archivist, so I don't forget. Because of my memories of my childhood and memories in general are crystal clear, good and bad. Good and bad comes from that. But people are astounded by the emotions I can remember. I don't remember anything before two, but I have very clear memories, like the day my brother was born. Absolutely clear. And it could only be mine because my parents were at the hospital. So there's nobody else to put that memory in me. So yeah, I feel like I have kept a very good track of the emotional journey of myself and my loved one.
I love this. Well, okay, so let's talk about this Aries moon. This is
Yeah, yeah.
interesting. So the moon represents our emotional core and our emotional inheritance. So that's ancestral wounds, but also the gifts that our ancestors have given us. And the other cool thing about knowing your moon is that it tells us what we're responsible for giving to ourselves in order to feel at home and centered in our own energy. So it's really empowering to know your moon because you can do your moon, right? Like, am I taking care of myself? So Aries is a totally different energy from Virgo and Cancer. So it's interesting. You've got water, earth, and fire now. So you've got three of the four elements in your big three. So that's like very balanced. That's good. So Aries is cardinal fire. So it's initiating fire. Fire is our passion, creativity, that creative spark, intuition, inspiration. And it's like a blowtorch, or it's like a volcano erupting. So Aries is just like naturally courageous, the naturally fearless leader who will go out ahead of everyone else without a map, without a guide. And then the downside, or the negative expression of Aries, is immaturity, because it's the first sign of the zodiac. So it's very much associated with the child. So there can be impulsivity with Aries energy. There can be recklessness. There can be a lot of leaping before looking.
Mm,
And I can relate to this because I am an Aries sun. This is where I shine. But when I connect to Aries moon energy, what that says to me about just your emotions is that you are very fiery. You are passionate. And then in terms of ancestral wounds, there's probably a wound around the self, right? Because Aries
mm,
is about the self, or a wound around being a leader, right? I can't go forward ahead of everybody else, right? But the gifts that come along with that Aries moon are that you do have
yeah,
all this fearlessness. You inherited that from your family, and not just your blood family, but beyond. They're ancestors of place and time, and there are star ancestors, but Aries is that warrior
yeah.
energy. So I'm curious, how do you do your moon? How do you take care of your emotional life and your emotional self?
A lot of time taking care of my emotional self. Yeah, I mean, I do the rainbow healing work on myself. I still
Mhm.
work with a guide in terms of the parts work. Outside of that, I meditate every day, which I can't believe I'm a person who meditates every day. Now I can't imagine. The person who told me to meditate every day about 10 years ago, she said, eventually it'll become like brushing your teeth. You just won't be able to do your day without it. And it took some years, but it's now brushing my teeth. It's absolutely something I do every day. And then the leader part, I mean, that's so interesting because that was another thing that was spoken to me first on that desert walkabout when I was 19. The guides were Native Americans who ancestrally were from that area, and then Mormons who were like the cowboys, the people
Mhm.
who were farming, having the livestock in that area. So everyone was Native American or Mormon farm guy on a horse. So those were the guides. And I happened to have one of the Native American guides. And he, similarly to that shaman saying, you're a shaman, right? One day he was like, you're a leader. You just don't know it yet. Or absolutely a leader. And on that trip, that emerged. And then I would say, I'm a reluctant leader a lot of the time, but it's definitely in me. Directing films, you're a leader. Like that's part of the job. If you can't lead, that's not going to go very well. So I definitely tap into that a lot. But one thing that you said that I also find to be part of the leader is being able to reflect to people their inherent value and joy and worthiness, and also possibility. As when I'm having business conversations with people, when I'm having creative conversations, when I'm reading someone's work and giving them feedback, they have in them the answer, and I can shine a light on it or help them shine a light on it, but that's already in them, which I think is something really cool that I've realized, especially in the creative process.
I love this. You're embodying the highest expression of that Aries moon, that Aries leader, because the unevolved Aries leader is very focused on themselves, right? And what they want to do. Whereas, the mature Aries leader is thinking of the collective and the whole, and how to bring out the best, out of each person in the community and whatnot. I'm curious, do you have a temper? Like, what is your relationship with anger? Because Aries moons can be fiery, like explosive. So what's that been like for you?
I definitely used to have a temper and, I met fire with fire. Like if someone threw a snowball, like they were getting pummeled back. Like there was no like walking
Yeah.
away or retreating. And way beyond snowballs, that was true. So I would say that I felt fury about the dog. Like, but it's like, okay, and it's there and don't act from that place. And that's been an interesting evolution in my business and creative, but more in the business. If something triggers me in a business negotiation or if I'm scared to send an email, I
Hmm.
just don't send it.
Yeah.
Like I do not override that anymore. Like become aware of it. Okay, I'm afraid to email this other human being. Why? And I get to the root of it. I do the rainbow healing work. I allow it to mellow. And that might mean I don't send an email for 5 days. But so far, like the 5 days hasn't mattered. And I can tell you that the resulting relationship would have been irreparably probably damaged by sending the email when I thought I should send the email. Like you reply, you can email your reply, like good little worker bee.
Yeah.
So it's definitely really helped me to kind of modulate. Okay, before I do anything, I have to deal with my emotional being.
I love it. Look at you taking care of yourself. All
Yeah.
right. Well, this has been so fun. I love talking astrology, and there's like so much more we could talk about. I
Well,
need
I
to
have a
give you a
question. I do have
reading.
one question.
Yeah, tell me.
So, in terms of the astrology, and the other thing that's come up a lot in the past couple of years that I've been on this becoming a healer journey is the desire and joy in creating and being a part of communities, which is the total antithesis. I was such a lone wolf and, from age forever until a couple of years ago. And now I'm the person who's like constantly arranging a brunch for all of us in Malibu, going to the entrepreneur event. I've gotten much more on board with being a part of and showing up for things that just seemed like a pain or too difficult or whatever. I can come up with 17 reasons not to drive in LA traffic at that time of day. So, what is that tendency? The tendency to like show up and be of service and be a part of because I know it will expand my world.
Oh my goodness. I mean, Virgo
Is that too
loves to
big of a
be of
question?
service.
Okay.
Virgo is all about service.
Okay.
So I think that's very Virgo. But then also I think Cancer too is playing a part here because Cancer is about community, right? And like bringing people together.
Okay.
And sharing the love with as many people as possible, your blood family, but also your chosen family and expanding that family. And then in terms of just like showing up, Aries moon. But also, it's Virgo too. Virgo is punctual. Virgo's like, I said I was going to be there at this time. I'll be 5 minutes early. Like they're on top of that shit. But I want to look at your whole chart honestly
Okay.
because I
Okay.
think that
Yeah, we gotta do it.
there are so many more nuances, and I would love to see how the planets are aspecting one another.
Mhm.
But we'll just do another
Okay.
episode and hopefully I'll get to read your chart before
Yeah,
then.
yeah.
Okay, so tell me, what are you working on now that you're really excited about that you could share with our community?
I am working on three things. On the Rainbow Healing Studio tip, I'm creating my website. Again, this is so perfect because rainbowhealing.com was taken. And because that was taken, everything associated with rainbow healing was like $1,000 because now they know it's like somebody wants.
Right.
So, but one of the options that was offered, which I didn't even know was a URL, it was rainbowhealing.studio instead of .com. Then I became aware of this 2 days ago. And I'm thinking, oh, well, that's what it is. So that literally just dropped into my lap on the thank you to whatever AI is generating those little descriptions the other day. Seeing private clients mainly with that offering right now, but I did do that one group in-person workshop. I'm excited to talk to your people, but I guess currently one-on-ones with that And if I have a group offering, it will be on that site. Filmmaker, storyteller, wise. I'm writing, as you know, I'm finishing a movie called Beach Week, which is about our beloved Dewey Beach, Delaware Beach Week that we all went to in high school. But it's about
So
four
excited for this.
45-year-old women going back because their fifth bestie has died, and her dying wish is that they go on a Beach Week treasure hunt
Oh,
to bond
so
them
cool.
together in her absence. And then Ghost Parents. It started as a play. I'm still allowing it to become, but it's basically what I experienced during the pandemic, which was my mom had died, and I went home to have her memorial service, buried both my parents because my dad's ashes had been sitting in the cabinet for 13 years. And this was all supposed to go down on March 13th, 2020. And then we were going to sell the apartment. So I brought the dog. Like I was there for, I thought, at least 6 weeks. And I ended up being there for 6 months because of the pandemic in this giant apartment that I grew up in that my family had owned for 45 years with both my parents' ashes. And all the memories, and it felt like they were still there, and they literally were still there. And one day I just thought, like, oh, what if they appeared as ghosts and told me not to sell the apartment, and and just started playing with that idea, and it turned into a rom-com with ghost parents, which I'm also writing a stage version, and then I'll definitely make it as a film. I'm not sure it'll start as a film, but that's kind of coming soon. That's after Beach
Super cool. I'm so excited. I'm so excited for Beach Week. I'm so excited for Ghost Parents. I just love how imaginative you are. So cool. Well,
Week.
all right. So I have one question that I ask of all of my guests at the end of the interview. So, what are the cycles that you're starting in your lineages in this lifetime?
I think it's got to be giving as much value to joy and fun and creativity as has been given to achievement and success, making those as valuable to life as the other. And hopefully, like a lightness. I had a lot of heaviness. And I still have it, but the light has definitely come into me. And I want to reflect that on those I love and those around me.
Beautiful. Well, so Lisa, where should people go if they want to learn more about you, how to work with you, if they want to learn more about Rainbow Healing Studio?
Yeah, I'm keeping it really simple. I'm on Instagram at Lisa Ebersole, and all the rainbow healing stuff is going to be on that Instagram as well. I'm just going to marry it all in one place. And then the website, which will have probably a little more description and some offerings, is rainbowhealing.com.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for saying
Welcome.
yes to being on the podcast. This has
Oh,
been
my
a
pleasure.
super cool conversation, and I loved hearing more about your life story and how rainbow healing just kind of came into your field and called you. This is awesome. And I'd love to have you back again. And we're definitely going to talk about you teaching inside the membership next
Yes,
year.
I'd love
So
to.
just, yeah, thank you for being open to that. And yeah, this has been fabulous.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, I think you're already doing what I hope is part of my purpose, which is creating a space for people to share meaningfully and have for healing and joy to be the focus. So, thank you for creating that space. Thank you for having me on my first podcast. And I'm excited to do the astrology reading and continue to work with you.
Oh my gosh. What a blessing. I receive all of that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. More to come, to be continued. All right, everybody, take care, and we will see you next time on the Cycle Starters podcast. Bye. Bye,
Bye.
Lisa.
Bye.